the new EuroCity Direct trains between the Netherlands and Belgium. These trains do start their service in Lelystad and will travel via Amsterdam to Belgium. They won't go at Amsterdam Central railway station. For that you need to take the metro. However, this is not a big deal because it's pretty well connected. And these trains do cut down the travel time a lot between the Netherlands and Belgium. Although I do have some strong points of criticism. I'll show you in this video. Join us on board of this EuroCity Direct train from Lelystad in the Netherlands via Almere, Amsterdam, Rotterdam and Antwerp to Brussels in Belgium. For now, let's get this video on the track and let's roll the intro. And before we start with this video, let me show you the map of today's routes. Maybe you have some better understanding of how I make this video. We start our journey at Lelystad Centrum. What is the only railway station of Lelystad, by the way. From there on we go via Almere Buiten, Almere Centrum to Amsterdam South station. From there on we move to Amsterdam Schiphol Airport, Rotterdam Central Station, Antwerp Central Station, and the final destination for today is Brussels Midi or Brussels South. And I promise you, I won't spend too much time on Lelystad railway station because I will also feature Amsterdam South station. But I'll show you briefly. At the front of the railway station in Lelystad you find some bus stops. This has a very regional function though. Until 2012 this was a terminal station, but since 2012 the railway line has been extended towards Zwolle. So it's a through station now. It's not a junction station at all. Although maybe if they want to build a new Lely line, this might be a junction railway station. But for now it isn't. The railway station itself is not what I would categorize as very pretty. It's a very functional railway station though. Lelystad is the capital city of the Dutch province of Flevoland. What is the newest province of the Netherlands, created only in 1986. The province of Flevoland is basically reclaimed land from the sea through land reclamation projects in the 20th century and contains mainly polders. The capital is Lelystad, but it's definitely not the biggest city of this province, because Almere, what is closer to Amsterdam, is quite a big city now. At the main concourse of Lelystad Centrum railway station, there are some shops like a kiosk, a fast food chain, and that's basically it. Apart from that, in terms of railway services, there is an information desk, but there's not always staff present, and you will find some vending machines for tickets. If you want to book international tickets, I think it's best to do this online though. Just like many Dutch railway stations, you will find access gates to the platforms. And that's also the case over here. If you're traveling with the e-ticket, you need to have your QR code ready and readable if you print it at least. Anyway, let's go to the platform where our train departs from today. At the platform, at these machines over here, you can pay for the extra fee if you're traveling domestically with the Intercity or EuroCity Direct, and this is needed for the section between Schiphol Airport and Rotterdam Central Station. However, if you have an international ticket, you don't need to pay this surcharge. When it comes to tickets, it's definitely not a very complicated situation, although it's also definitely not the most easy situation. This is our EuroCity Direct train coming in that will take us to Brussels. Although for the first part we'll only be taking this train as far as Amsterdam South, where I show you that station. And they are pretty similar compared to the domestic Intercity New Generation. What is, by the way, the worst name you can imagine for a train. However, the color scheme at the outside for the domestic trains is slightly different. More like what we used to know for domestic intercity trains within the Netherlands. Well, I will highlight the train a little bit later on in the video, because I will also feature the railway station of Amsterdam South. I think that makes more sense. So for now I'll just show you the views from the train between Lelystad Centrum and Amsterdam South, and I'll get back to you when we arrive there. the train is arriving at the railway station of Amsterdam South. Having these trains from and to Amsterdam South is actually quite obvious, more obvious than you might think at first. For this, let's take a closer look at the Dutch railway map. These are all the railway lines in the Netherlands for public railways, and Amsterdam South is located over here, where Amsterdam Central Station is located at this point over here. Basically, what this means is that Amsterdam South is much more obvious for if you're traveling through, unless you need to be in this part over here. Then having a train that just calls at Amsterdam Central Station and continues its way makes more sense. But for the biggest part of the Netherlands, Amsterdam South is actually more obvious. And even though the railway station of Amsterdam Central is closer to the city center, and of course is more the monumental railway station, has some charm when it comes to this, the railway station of Amsterdam South is pretty well connected with the metro, so you're not too far away from most touristic hotspots. Apart from that, most people need to take the metro or the train after they arrived at Amsterdam Central Station anyway. This is the metro and rail map, so the national rail map of Amsterdam. Over here you find Amsterdam South Station, and this here is Amsterdam Central Station. And as you can see, it's pretty well connected with line 52, also known as the North-South line. From many metro stations, especially along the North-South line that's going straight through the old city center, you find really well connection on the tramway of Amsterdam as well, that goes to lots of other places within the city. Of course, you can also travel by bike, what is typically Dutch, but if you're a tourist and you don't know how to ride a bike, please don't do this. I'm speaking on behalf of many other Dutch people, including myself, even though I'm not from Amsterdam. The metro is frequent and in general the trains are clean and not too busy though. Although there might be some exceptions every now and then. And even though it's pretty well connected with the metro system of Amsterdam, the Eurostar trains to London, to Paris, formerly known as Thalys, and the long distance trains to Germany will use Amsterdam Central Railway Station. At least for now. And this can all be a bit confusing, to be honest. Even though it's planned that also the Eurostar trains, the one to London and the one to Paris, formerly known as Thalys, and also the international high-speed trains to Germany will eventually use Amsterdam South Station instead of Amsterdam Central Station. And these EuroCity Direct trains are just the first of all these international trains. However, I can imagine lots of people who are not known with this situation will book train tickets from or to Amsterdam Central Station if they need to go there. And also in a future situation. So I think for that same reason it's good to feature Amsterdam South Station as well in this video. Even though in probably approximately 5 years from now on, this will be a totally different station. And that's also needed if this is gonna be the international hub for Amsterdam. Anyway, let's review the station as it is at this very moment, mid-2025. Close to the railway station you will find the tram stops. And these tram stops are a kind of suburban trams. They will go to Amstelveen and Uithoorn, what is quite far actually. And line 5 is also going more towards the city center of Amsterdam. Close to the tram stops there are quite some bus stops as well. And as far as I know, the taxi stands are also around this area. Amsterdam South is a really business area. You find lots of big offices around here. Therefore it's also pretty well connected. Both with the city of Amsterdam and its surroundings with the tram and the metro, and the trains that go all over the Netherlands from and to here. The tram and bus stops are located at a little bit higher level, at street level. If you want to move towards the trains, you have to go down here. Now, if you have some difficulties by walking the stairs, you do find elevators to this here as well. Straight under the bridge that hosts the tram and the bus stops, you find quite a lot of spots where you can park your bike. Well, this might seem quite a lot, but I think there's still a shortage of bike parking spots over here. I mean, we are in the Netherlands after all, a true cycling country. The square at the front of the station, basically between the tram and the bus stop and the station itself, hosts some shops as well, like for example a convenience store, some restaurants, you name it. And over here you also find another guarded parking grass for bikes. That's more often than not full, so it's obviously not big enough. Well, thank goodness there are more spots to park your bike around here. But as you can see, it's still not enough. Anyway, I can imagine that if you watch this video you're not from Amsterdam, so it's maybe more interesting to know how to get around by bike. And please, I refer again to the earlier comment I made about tourists in Amsterdam that ride bikes. Over here you will find two bike sharing programs. The OV bike, or OV fiets, what is the public transportation bike, and that's being owned by the Dutch state-owned railway company NS and is by far the most popular bike sharing program in the Netherlands. But also Donkey Republic, what is my personal favorite bike sharing program. I do have a subscription for this. Of course prices might change, but I pay €105 per year and I can rent a bike in all cities where Donkey Republic is for 2 hours per day included in my subscription. What is just a freaking good deal. I use Donkey Republic in Spain, the Netherlands obviously, Belgium, Denmark, Switzerland and Sweden, and you find it in more countries. And while I was filming here, people were waiting in line for the public transportation bike of the Dutch state-owned railway company NS. Okay, for that one they have really a lot of bikes, so if people return a bike, someone can take it, and people return pretty frequently for this. But still, Donkey Republic bikes were still available. Anyway, enough of the bike parking over here, let's go up again. At this very moment at least, Amsterdam South station is basically one tunnel where you find access to the platforms, and at the front and at the back of the tunnel there are quite some shops. Although in terms of facilities and shops, it's absolutely not something that is suitable yet to be the international railway station of the Netherlands and Amsterdam. Location-wise though, it makes sense to make this the main station of Amsterdam. In the future, Amsterdam will have two main stations that are not connected by train, by the way. Right here on the left you find access to the underground, or the metro. Both for the metro and for the national trains you do find access gates, but this works pretty easy. Close to the metro entrance, at the front of the railway station basically, you also find a ticket and information point for the city public transportation. Especially if you're at the area for the metros, it's very obvious that everything is really temporary over here. The platforms are, well, very obvious, a temporary installation, and also around the metro station, where if you move to the main hall from the platforms and the other way around, it is clear that there are some construction works going on over here. At this moment you will find two terminal tracks, and this is basically from Metro Line 52, what is the north-south connection. For now, let's take a close look at the current situation of this railway station from a satellite image perspective. And also let's take a look on the planning for when everything should be finished. They started with the construction works in 2019, by the way. As currently planned, from 2027 the new Brit Passage will be open, so this is for the Eurostar trains from and to London. Custom formalities can take place at this railway station from that moment on. Really a pity that only this year, 2025, they just opened a brand new Eurostar terminal in Amsterdam Central Station. Maybe that will be a backup plan for construction works, I don't know. Anyway, in 2031 there will be a new bus station opened. This includes something for the tram stops as well. From 2033 there will be a junction for the highway finished, and from 2034 there will be a new tunnel open for the highway, so the highways will go underground. It will be the South Tunnel. 1 year later, 2035, the North Tunnel will be opened, and from 2036 the whole station should be finished. I mean, this is pretty far in the future. Actually, my currently unborn child will go almost to high school around that time. Well, I think I'll still be making these videos on about 12 years from now, at least I hope so. And if I do that, I'll definitely feature this railway station for every little detail. And I won't do this alone. I will do this together with my currently unborn child. If he or she likes it, of course. Well, at this very moment, I'm speaking of 2025, there are 4 tracks and 2 platforms. From and to the platforms there are elevators, but there's only 1 elevator per platform. Around the entrance of the platforms you find some shops, but it's not really worth mentioning. There's also not a whole lot of space over here. But in about 2 years time from now there will be at least 1 more tunnel under the railway platforms. There is a ticket and service desk, but at this moment it's only for domestic trains. I think this will change in the not too far away future. At the back of the railway station there are some more shops and also vending machines to buy train tickets. Something that's also very obvious at the back is that there are construction works going on around here. Once again, I think this video will age pretty fast. There are quite a lot of smaller screens in and around the railway station that will host information about departing trains, as you can see over here on the ceiling. Anyway, let's go to our train for today. The platforms themselves are pretty tiny, to be honest. Also, with the current amount of passengers, I think the staircases and the elevators are just not enough. However, we'll benefit from the first construction works or the upgrades in about 2 years time from now on. And also the roof that is above the platforms right now doesn't look that great either. And especially not for the international train hub in the Netherlands and Amsterdam. From and to here you find lots of trains. Obviously, most of them are domestic trains, intercities, regional trains, you name it. And this is our train coming in that will take us to Brussels South and actually came from Lelystad. Before I continue with this video and show you the train, I hope you like this so far or that it's a helpful video to you. If so, please give me a thumbs up, I really appreciate that. If you have some questions, feedback, comments, let me know in the comment section. And if you'd like to see more trip reports about more sustainable ways of transportation, the main focus for this channel is long distance and or international traveling, then hit that subscribe button if you haven't done this already. For now, let's continue with this video. Let's quickly rewatch the previous clip again. The numbers 2 and 1 at the side of the train do host where you will find the first and the second class. Apart from that, the first class will also be mentioned with an extra stripe above the windows. Very basic icons do indicate where you find the accessible area and the bike area of the train, in the icon of a wheelchair or a bike, as you can see over here. And even though in terms of facilities these trains are not that amazingly outstanding, they are still pretty good and comfortable trains, and I think this is most important. The currently longest journey time possible on board of these trains is a little under 3 hours. Well, let's review the trains. At the total front or back of the train, actually at both sides, you will find these areas in second class or standard class, just how you want to mention it. You would expect that this is a silence area, but that's not the case. There are some bike areas and the bike areas have been marked crystal clear. In terms of ticketing and taking your bike on board of these trains, I do have some serious points of criticism, but I'll share that later on in the video if I show you the views from the train. There's definitely not a shortage of power sockets. You also find these couches at some spots in both second and first class, and they're actually pretty nice. For luggage within the open compartments you find quite a lot of these luggage racks, and compared to the domestic trains that are very similar to this, they have more of these. But obviously you also have the overhead luggage racks throughout the train, and don't miss out on the backends between the seats for luggage. I see a lot of people just not utilizing this, and that doesn't only count for this train but for trains in general. About 1/3 of the seats does come in an airline style composition and 2/3 in a form of seats facing each other. Some of the seats do have bigger tables between the seats, what is actually quite nice, and for some other seats you only find a table near the windows. There are no litter bins near the seats, but you will find them at the vestibules, and there are several of them, so you can use them to separate your waste. This way traveling by train is even more sustainable. Over here you will find the special wheelchair area, so for people with mobility problems. Let it be no surprise that close to this area you will also find the bigger accessible toilet. Within the bigger accessible toilet you can also change the diaper if you're traveling with a little baby. I like to see this in general a bit more on board of Dutch trains, to be honest. As far as I know, the Intercity New Generation are the only trains that do have this. All toilets on board of these trains do have picture wallpapers, by the way, but it's quite nice. Well, some of them are nicer than others. Let's move on. Screens throughout the train do host pretty detailed route information. This will be, well, some route information. There might be some ads every now and then, some general messages. And a lot of the route information is not only in Dutch, French or English, but also in German, surprisingly. Special mood lights should indicate the different zones on board of this train, but to be honest, I don't think this is very clear. Maybe the silent zone is a little bit more clear because there's also a quiet icon, but even then it's not mentioned very well. Over here we are in the first class that comes in a 2x1 configuration, and to be honest, the first class on board of these trains is really a nice product. Compared to the second class, it's worth the upgrade. Well, depends on the price difference, of course. There is another first class section, I'll show you that in a bit. Over here, some more bike areas and some folding seats right next to it. At some spots where you find the kind of couches, it's actually really nice because there's not enough room for regular seats, but this way you can still have nice seats and more capacity. As far as I noticed, these trains are a little bit different in that terms that there is a ladder on board of these trains. I think this has to do with the safety features for Belgium. Now let's review one of the regular toilets you find on board of this train. You will find several of these toilets, and the wallpaper in this toilet, I like it a bit more than in the previous toilet I saw. Now let's move on. Once again, the mood lights should indicate what kind of zone you're in, but honestly, can you tell this? I can't. This here is supposed to be the quiet zone over here, I think, because I can see it on the quiet zone that's not displayed very well. But all the other zones, I honestly don't know. What is your opinion about this? Let me know in the comments. Before we move on to the first class and before I do a seat review, let's quickly review the other toilet over here. I mean, all the toilets are different in terms of wallpaper at the side. And I like this one also a bit more. Feels like you're doing your business in the bushes over here. And here we are in the other part of the first class. In terms of layout, it's pretty similar to the first class I already walked through. For this, let's do a seat review in first class. What I like, by the way, and that's not only in first class but also in second class, is the NS label at all the seats. Where the Dutch state-owned railway company with the previous refurbished trains they had, these were the firm double-deck trains. The first class over there, I didn't feel it was good at all, actually, especially compared to the second class. Mainly the second class product was good on those trains, but in these trains I really feel the difference. The seats are way more comfortable. Amount of legroom is not that much more. I mean, the second class is also pretty fine, but the seats in first class, there's just a big difference on this. So it might be interesting a bit more to travel on first class on these trains, and especially because some of these trains will be used on longer distances. Let's review the airline style seats. There's a small but sturdy table in the seat in front of you, and also integrated in the seat in front of you, you find a small coat hanger. Under the seats there's a handle you can use to recline the seats, and there's not a shortage of power sockets over here. In terms of service, it's the same as second class. You won't get any extra service. It's just you have more room and the seats are more comfortable. Once again, I think, especially if the price difference is not that big, it's worth the upgrade on both of these trains. Now let's head back to second class or standard class and let's do some seat reviews over here. For the airline style seats, you do find seriously a lot of legroom as well. This is very generous, and I have to add up to this, I'm quite a tall boy. Although it looks like that some seats do have slightly more legroom than other seats. But it's still pretty okay in general if you ask me. Priority seats on board of these trains have been marked as well. Not only with some very small and actually two subtle stickers at the side, but also with a special headrest. As you can see on the icons on the headrest, and also the color is slightly different compared to the other headrests. Even though it's not possible to reserve seats, you will find seat numbers on board these trains. Maybe this is something for in the future. However, the numbers for the seats are not like the European standard for train seat numbers. At least as far if there is a European standard when it comes to this. You will find different ways of seat numbers on board of trains. And to be honest, I think standardizing a little bit more would make a lot of sense. Well, I won't dig in this too much, but for example a seat number 68 is obvious, but 69 doesn't make a whole lot of sense in the what kind of standards you have. There are quite some screens on board of this train that will host route information. In all classes, at the vestibules, well, you name it. When it comes to this is a pretty good train. And even though after half a year in service you will mainly find these newer trains, sometimes you might still find the old rolling stock on this route. And it also counts for the domestic intercity direct trains within the Netherlands. Although it's very rare, and these trains you see here will retire soon. For now, let's take a close look on the environmental impact if you're traveling on this route by train, car and plane. And when it comes to travel time, the plane doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's actually slower if you count everything together. And also the plane is 3,652% more polluting than taking the train on the same route. When it comes to travel time, the car and the train might be a little bit competitive, although the train is slightly faster. For now, I just show you some views from the train, and while I do this I want to share some things about ticket fares and also the schedule in general. Because I really do have some strong points of criticism on these trains and on the ticket fare system. Let me first show you the routes for the new trains. Until late 2024, these were just the intercity trains between the Netherlands and Belgium, running on the same route as the red line here, and then continue from there on to Amsterdam Central Station, so following the blue line. Now you will find EuroCity Direct, what are the faster trains, and then EuroCity, what are still pretty okay trains, but are a bit slower, and will call at more stations. The EuroCity trains also need to make a switch back at the railway station of Breda and have a detour in Belgium via the airport, what obviously takes more time. And about these topics for the route. At the railway station of Brussels North, you do find great connections as well on other, also international trains, for example if you want to travel towards Luxembourg. Brussels Central railway station, where the EuroCity Direct also does not call, is the station if you want to visit Brussels, so most touristic areas are around there. Even though Central Station for Brussels doesn't make a whole lot of sense in terms of most important one, because that is Brussels South. However, by not letting these EuroCity Direct trains stop at Brussels North and Brussels Central Station, I don't understand that. At least make a stop at Brussels North Station, that's what I would think. Within the Netherlands, so basically the route between Lelystad, Almere, Amsterdam and Rotterdam, the same rule applies as for the domestic trains on this route. And the domestic trains that run on the high-speed line over here are called Intercity Direct. However, at the moment the train goes into Belgium, different rules apply. You have promotional tickets that can be really affordable if you book on time, and those tickets are based on demand. What I think is good also to spread out passengers over different trains. If it's really busy, the price will be higher. If it's not so busy, the price will be lower. I really encourage this. And apart from that, you also have tickets that are applicable for all trains on these routes. However, if you're traveling from, for example, let's say Amsterdam and you want to go to Brussels, the slower EuroCity trains do often not pop up. And that's really a pity because those trains are in general way cheaper. And especially if you buy the full flexibility tickets, so that's not for a specific train. Some of the booking websites just show basically the fastest trains first. However, while there are international planners where you can find the slower connections as well if you enter a VIA station, if you book this via the most common booking websites, and for the Netherlands that's obviously the Dutch state-owned railway company their own website as well, you cannot enter a VIA station and sometimes you don't get the alternatives for the slower and more affordable EuroCity trains. What is really a big downside if you ask me. If you book your train tickets from some parts in the Netherlands to Belgium, you might not even get the EuroCity Direct either, like for example in parts of Brabant. And when the differences in time is not even that big, you might also see the tickets for both of these trains, so for the EuroCity and the EuroCity Direct. Apart from that, you also have a, extremely slow route, by the way, if you're traveling via a regional train between Roosendaal and Antwerp. But I won't dig in that, even though you might find some very good deals for the Belgian section if you do that. Anyway, what my biggest point of criticism is, if you're looking up the train ticket fares for the Netherlands to Belgium, sometimes the EuroCity doesn't pop up where only the EuroCity will be shown, or maybe the other way around, but that's less of a big deal actually. And this really can make that people pay too much for their train tickets. Basically, the highest product on these trains is the Eurostar, that's a premium train. Then, right below that, you find the EuroCity Direct, and then a bit lower, the EuroCity. Let's not talk about the lowest fare regional trains that do cross the border. And I just want to see all options. Also something I don't fully understand, and I don't even know if this is 100% true, but if you have a EuroCity Direct ticket, let's say a full fare ticket, so you pay the full price, and you want to travel with the slower, more affordable EuroCity trains, that's not allowed. I understand the other way around, but this is quite strange to me. And even sometimes when I was looking into the international planners, the Eurostar trains were showing all the time and not the EuroCity Direct, and sometimes not even the EuroCity trains. And I fully understand that different booking websites just show the fastest connection. I mean, this is why they are built that way. But if the slower connection, that sometimes maybe half an hour slower, is way more affordable, I think this should also be displayed. Anyway, while I show you the views from the train just went on the high-speed line and is off the high-speed line again near the station of Rotterdam, where it will also make a call. And while I show you the views from the train also made a stop at Amsterdam Schiphol airport. Maybe you already noticed I did not record this video in one single go. Anyway, here is our train at the Rotterdam Central Station. In Rotterdam Central Station you will also find the first class lounge for first class passengers. The same thing comes by the way at Schiphol airport, but not at Amsterdam South station yet. After Rotterdam, the train continues to the South high-speed line that is connecting Rotterdam with Antwerp. Well, some more points of criticism on the ticketing for these trains. And I haven't mentioned my biggest point of criticism yet. I'll do that at last. If you're traveling with a bike on board of these trains, that's possible, I showed you. But you can't reserve a spot for a bike. And of course there is a limited amount of bike spots available. If lots of people show up with their bike, well, then you just have to wait for the next one. But you have tickets for specific trains. You don't have bike tickets for specific trains, or you cannot reserve a bike spot. And if you have these ticket fares that are for specific trains only, I think you should also at least be able to reserve a bike spot. Over here the train is going over the Moerdijk Bridge. This is the longest railway bridge in the Netherlands and right next to the conventional railway line that's on another bridge. These trains go up to 200 kilometers per hour, while the high-speed lines have been built for speeds up to 300 kilometers per hour. Although these trains do accelerate pretty fast, so yeah, in that sense it's not a big difference compared to other high-speed trains. However, if you know the history of these trains and this railway line, then I think it's a very interesting history, but I won't dig in that because this video already takes too long. But I do have a video on the trains that were originally planned on these routes. You can find them in Italy now. Anyway, our train is arriving at the railway station of Antwerp over here. And here I have my biggest point of criticism on these trains, and this is something that actually makes me mad in a specific way. Simply because the railway line Antwerp to Brussels is the most popular railway line within Belgium, with pretty frequent trains on this route. And despite the fact that more than half of the people that was on board of our train left in Antwerp, you cannot take this train for domestic routes within Belgium. And the train staff is doing actively their best to not let people in at Antwerp. I understand it's their task, so they just do what that's asked from them. However, why on earth does this train not take domestic passengers in Belgium? To be honest, skipping Antwerp Bergen railway station where the EuroCity trains do call, I fully understand that. Mechelen, I have mixed feelings about that, but Brussels North, well, I don't understand you skip that station. Brussels Central, I have also mixed feelings about that. And Brussels South was a terminal station, obviously the train stops there. But the selection of stops and not letting people take this train on the most popular route within Belgium, while other trains on this route, especially in the rush hour, are very busy, I just don't understand this. Having the extra capacity for trains between Belgium and the Netherlands is very much appreciated and also needed. However, I think the points of criticism I do have on this will be things that will be taken in account for improvement in the next couple of years. Here our train is arriving in Brussels, the capital of Belgium. And it's skipping Brussels North station, what is being used by night jet trains and ICE trains as a stop within Brussels. And once again, if you want to travel towards Luxembourg, it's easiest to change here. At Brussels Central railway station, what is located underground by the way, you are at the railway station that's closest to the city center. And by having this train with Brussels as a final destination, I think a lot of people would like to go out here. But the train doesn't call here either. However, I slightly understand this because Brussels Central Station is not very big. And also the ICE trains to Germany, the night jet trains to Austria and also European sleeper do not call at Brussels Central Station. Where at Brussels South Station you will find lots of international trains, including lots of Eurostar trains that will go to London, Paris, and also high-speed trains to the south of France, to several destinations and several times per day. Also for the ICE trains, the Nightjet and European Sleeper, Brussels South Station is also the final station, or the starting station in Brussels, just how you look at it. So that's it for this way too long video. I hope you liked it or this has been helpful to you. If so, please give me a thumbs up, I really appreciate that. If you have some questions, feedback, comments, let me know in the comment section. Even if you just want to say hello once again, feel free to do so. And if you like to see more trip reports or more sustainable ways of transportation, the main focus for this channel is once again long distance and or international traveling, then hit that subscribe button if you haven't done this already. I also started another channel where I filmed the views from the trains for the entire routes. I haven't done this for this specific route yet, but I will do this soon as well. And I still have a lot of videos to edit for that channel because, well, I want to make sure I block out the people in the reflection of the windows if the train goes through tunnels. And also in terms of audio, I have several audio sources in the train to make sure I don't catch any private conversations. So that's more work than I initially thought. But at this moment, I do have those videos on another channel. I'll link that channel in the description of this video. There I don't talk at all. So if you want to see that, just go there. But for now, I really have to end up this video. Once again, thank you for watching and see you on the next video. Before we really end up this video, one very last thing. Once again, thank you for watching. If you're interested in other videos, in the description of this video you find a link to a map. And on this map you can find all videos as well. But then on a map. See you on the next video.